Coffee is a big part of my day. Not only does it help me get through the morning, but I just really love the taste of good quality beans. Trade is a subscription service that brings great coffee from indie roasters all over the country right to your door. Tell Trade what you typically like, whether it's espresso or single origins or even decaf, even how you like to make your coffee, and they will recommend the right beans for you. Or you can just choose from over 450 different coffees. Then you select how often you'd like the coffee delivered to you. Shipping is always free, by the way. And if you need to skip a week or so, just do that. You can do it. No charge at all. Then pick back up when you're ready to get beans delivered to your door again. Go to unitedwedrink.com/trade to get started with Trade today and start getting some of the best coffees in the country delivered to your door. That's unitedwedrink.com/trade. The opinions and statements in this podcast do not represent those of the host's employers, co-workers, family, or imaginary friends. Now enjoy the show.
Happy hour? More like amateur hour. Welcome to United We Drink.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to another new episode of the United We Drink podcast right here on unitedwedrink.com, as well as Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and wherever fine podcasts are found. My name is Mike Urevich, and I am a proud father of a child who told his other child to go fuck himself. Basically, that is what happened, and he did use the word fuck. So we have Kevin Abbott here with him. I don't know if Kevin's child has ever told him to go fuck himself, or any other child at that matter.
Jad has not said that to me, but it's coming any day now. He's 6. It's well past the time. There's been many times I've deserved him telling me to go fuck myself. So we'll see. Mike, I do want to say that I've never been happier to sit down and talk with you about this crazy beer industry and just to shoot the shit, because it's been a long day for me, and I didn't even think I was going to be in like decent enough spirits to do this show because I was just so bummed about work and everything else. I had to like go take a run and get my head straight, and then we jumped on, and I'm feeling good and fine and frisky and have a few beers in me, so let's do this thing.
Awesome. Well, Tim was unable to make it for today's recording, so he won't be here, but hopefully we will have him back for the next episode. We have a topic that we've been wanting to talk about for a little while, and looking forward to that. But because of this, we were basically unprepared to record with just the two of us. So we are kind of winging this in the sense that we are doing kind of like a grab bag free conversation type of thing. We do have a few topics that we wanted to talk about, but we don't think that they're really things that we can go into for an entire episode. So before we do that, it is as customary to ask Kevin, what are you drinking tonight with all this fun festivities?
I have to point out that it never ceases to amaze me how honest you are with the people that listen to this show. Many people would say, oh no, we had like 4 or 5 topics and we're going to put them together and jumble together. You come out and say, we have no idea what the fuck we're doing. I love that about you. There's
fucking transparency, man.
It is pure transparency. You are the most honest human being on the face of the planet. I think Jad should look up to you and not me. So
honesty in podcasting. I believe like Walter Cronkite said something about that.
Without it, him or Abraham Lincoln. So I am finishing my first beer, actually, because we were having a little conversation before we started. A Verdant Embrace IPA by Barrel of Monks Brewing. Man, do I love this beer. Thank you, Ralph. But I'm about to crack into the Paulaner Hefeweizen that I just picked up.
It's in a can, too.
Yes, in a can. I just picked this up the other day. I ran into Sean, who was a rep for Brown back in the day, and he has done some RTD sales and stuff, but he's now a rep for Paulaner. And I ran into him at Total Wine and Spirits last week. And I was like, hey, or I think he saw me and said, hey. And I said, hey, I've never done a beer. I've never done a Polliner beer for Old Favorite Friday. I love all the Polliner beers. Which is your favorite? Come on in, let's do an Old Favorite Friday together. So he picked the Heffy. We just recorded it. It'll be out next week as you're listening to this. And I had this Hefeweizen for the first time in probably 5 years. And I said, oh shit, remember when everyone made a Hefeweizen? Remember when like every craft brewery, it was a prerequisite that you had to make one of these, and they were one of the best beer styles in the world because they're one of the oldest and one of the most flavorful and the most interesting and a gateway beer? Oh, that's still a thing. Like this is still a world-class, amazing, almost perfect beer, and no one seems to care about it anymore. So that's what I'm about to drink. Mike, what are you drinking?
I am drinking a Voodoo Ranger Tropic Force from New Belgium in a big 19.2 ounce can that I got from Publix. Publix is selling, they got a big singles section now, like of all large format cans. You know, like last week or the last couple weeks, I've seen this one and Lagunitas Maximus there. And this is actually, I think, my third or fourth Tropic Force that I've had. But then I went in today and I'm looking because they had them in the craft section, at least at my Publix. And I'm looking, I'm like, where's the fucking Tropic Force? And then I'm just like, well, I guess they're out of them. So I'm walking down the beer aisle, and then I see right next to the NA section, all these tall boy cans. They have like Stella and Corona, but there was Dogfish Head 90, Highlight Double IPA, which I grabbed one of those, but haven't had yet. Florida Man, Golden Monkey, a lot of like high ABV stuff, a lot of IPAs. I was blown away because it was like, this is Publix now. They're finally seeing like, oh, convenience stores are doing this, so we should too.
Convenience stores, Walmart. I mean, that's a big part of the sales for Walmart, for other grocery and places like that. Yeah, I was shocked when I saw that. I mean, this is, for all of you who are waiting, this is reset season for Publix. It's the most wonderful time of the year. We feel good about it because we added about 30 new POGs, planogram locations inside different Publix locations. So we're very happy about it. So I'm looking at all the planograms, all the cooler sets when I walk in. And not only did those all go in, but I am thrilled to see that the Sierra Nevada NAs are in the sets. That makes me so happy because I used to have to go to Total Wine. Listen, I love Total Wine. I plug Total Wine all the time because I pick up most of my Old Favorite Friday beers there. So all love to them, but I don't go there every week. I go to Publix every week. So I'm so happy that some of those beers crept into it, and it deserved it because the NA set didn't exactly expand a lot, but I think it got a lot more interesting with some of the beers that they put in there.
Yes. The Trail Pass IPA is now constant in my fridge. I still will probably pick up the Heineken one when that's on sale. I love the Guinness one. But man, being able to find that just in my local Publix is a game changer. I also love that they have, at least mine is carrying the Lagunitas hop water now. The hoppy refreshers, which I used to have to go to Whole Foods to get. So the fact that I can now go to Publix and get that as well, like NA options. Yeah, the footprint is not any bigger, but the options there, I feel like, are much better.
They've diversified a little bit and some of the more crafty options. Listen, I tried the hop water from Sierra a couple weeks ago.
Like that one.
So I've never had one before. And my one of my neighbors, Martin, who he's a big craft beer fan, nicest guy in the world. He shares a lot of stuff with me. He asked me about it. I said I hadn't had one. He brought one to the bus stop, like in the morning where we're dropping our kids off. He's like, "Here, by the way, here's a hop water. Try it out." And I really enjoyed it because it was the first one I ever had. And I haven't had the Lagunitas one, but I'll have to be on the lookout for that. Yeah, a lot of changes going on there.
The Sierra Nevada one, I feel, is too dry for me. And the Sierra Nevada one was not the first one that I ever had. The Lagunitas one was the first one I have. And I don't know this for a fact, but I believe someone told me that they put a little bit of citric acid into their hop water, the hoppy refresher, to give it a little bit of tartness. And I love that in that one. So you have the hoppy flavor with a hint of tartness that just it really does give a refreshing feeling, where the Sierra Nevada hop water is like bone dry to me. And I feel like my thirst isn't quenched when I drink it. Like that, I can drink the whole 6-pack and it's just like, I need more.
That's the perfect marketing gimmick. You have to keep drinking more to buy more. It's exactly what you want. So, Mike, I do have a question. I mentioned in the What Am I Drinking? And I am now drinking the Paulaner Hefeweizen. I don't know where you fall with Hefe. We've never really talked about wheat beers a lot. I mean, I know you have a very popular wheat beer that you make over there at Copper Point. Obviously, we have the Wizard White Ale. Hefes and wheats, Franziskaner Hefeweizen, Weihenstephaner Hefeweizens, Tucher even, which is not my favorite Weiss beer, but one that was always available widely. That was a big gateway beer for me, that style. Did you have a similar experience with that? Were these beers that grabbed you, or were you one of those people that didn't like some of the yeasty flavors that are thrown off by these beers?
I probably fall into the latter category. I am not a huge fan of those banana clovey characters in most hefts. It didn't stop me from trying a lot of hefts, because there were some ones here and there that I enjoyed, but I never really went out of my way to have. Franziskaner was probably like one of the best in my opinion. But if it was a wheat beer, I preferred Belgian Wits over Hefeweizen for a wheat-based beer like that. Like, give me a Saint Bernardus for a true like Belgian style one. Allagash White, fuck yeah on that. But yeah, the hefts weren't my thing. But I mean, I know so many people that did love those, and like you said, I don't remember if it was before the show or you just said it, like everyone made one.
Yeah.
Like it was insane. Like you almost couldn't have a portfolio of beer without a Hefeweizen in it.
When I was involved in the start of Funky Buddha, I didn't help pick the lineup of the beers, but Ryan was adamant that Floridian was going to be a Hefeweizen. It wasn't going to be a Belgian wit. It wasn't going to be an American wit. He wanted to be a Hefeweizen. And for a brewery called Funky Buddha in South Florida, there's no reason to call a beer a Hefeweizen or be a German-style beer, but they were the beers that were in so many different portfolios, and it just made sense. I think over the years, that beer's leaned much more into an American wheat. I don't think it has the Hefeweizen vibe that it might have started out with, and we didn't even start out with that much of a Hefeweizen vibe, because that original beer actually had orange and vanilla in it, which from I
do remember that.
Yeah, that was the first concept of the beer, was kind of like a creamsicle. But I digress. The Hefeweizen style, when it's done well, is a thing of beauty. It's poetry, and this is so good because you do get the banana. Right, you get a little bubble gum, you get a little banana, you get a little clove, but this is so drinkable. And I know we use that word is so overly used, but it is thirst quenching in a way that, and I sadly say this, I don't think Tucher is. I think Tucher's a little more chewy, a little more rich. It's a beer that I like one or two of. I could drink several of these. Same thing with the Weihenstephaner, same thing with Franziskaner. When they're done well, and those kind of those Hefeweizen flavors are well managed and they're not like running away, it's so good. And this is just a beautiful example of it.
I mean, shout out to Joel, former co-host. He won Best Beer in Florida at the Best Florida Beer competition in 2019, I think it was, for his Hefeweizen. Won a gold medal, and then it was Best in Show. And that's not really that long ago. It's 5 years ago in the whole scheme of things. But yeah, it's it's such a crazy thing to think that those were so madly popular. I mean, I I don't know how much of this is proprietary talk information, stuff like that, but like we have a beer coming out with Lazy Dog soon, and through our the restaurant group, and we're in their next quarter of beers. I don't remember if there's the embargo still on what it is, so I'm not going to say that. But through our initial conversations, they wanted us to make a Hefeweizen, and we were like, we've never made a Hefeweizen. We don't think that it would be a good representation of our brewery. And they're like, our drinkers really like Hefeweizen. And I'm like, really? Like, do they? Like, and they showed some of like the previous Hefeweizens that they've had in their beer club, and it's like heavily fruited. I'm like, okay, if they love that, they like fruit, they like sugar, like they don't like Hefeweizen really. But it was kind of funny that they were trying to be like, hey, you guys should do a Hefeweizen. We're like, no, son, okay.
So I think that's an interesting thing, because I am a Lazy Dog Beer Club member, and it's a chain that is popular throughout the country, but I think they have like strongholds mostly out west. And I've promoted our beer. We did Hop Attack with them, which was really, really good. And then we won a competition to bring that beer back with all like the 100 beers they've done. We were voted one of the top 4 beers to come back. Was very proud of that. Shout out to Ralph, as always, did a great job. But I actually have their red ale, the Imperial Red, right here from the last kit, right? The one right before the one that you're going to have. And I can say this about the Lazy Dog beers. The brewery Melvin that makes those beers is very good. We loved working with them. They make really, really good beers. I think the majority of the beers that they do, whatever the style says on there, you have a 50-50 chance of getting a beer that's to that style, or is completely bonkers, should not be labeled that at all. They did a farmhouse ale a couple times ago, which is the farthest thing I've ever had from a farmhouse ale. They've done IPAs that had no hop aroma or hop bitterness. But when I get one of the beers, and at least one, sometimes 2 of the beers in that kit will be incredible. And unfortunately, they usually are, when I look at the ratings, like the lower end of the ratings. They should be the higher ones. This Imperial Red from Black Horizon Brewing Company is really good. It's an Imperial Red. It's not pulling any punches. There's no papaya in here. It's just a red ale that's really, really well made. It was a good, simple recipe that they were put together by Black Horizon and made by good brewers. And it's just great. It's a really, really, really good beer. But some of the beers you're talking about, when you mentioned the Hefeweizen, I had the Hefeweizen that you're talking about that they most recently had that was fruited. And that beer wasn't that good. And if the people enjoyed that, I'm sorry, they were wrong, because that was not good.
Fucking Imperial Red. That is a style that I adored. And I was just, while you were talking about it, I'm like, there was one by Port Brewing that I know was like so fucking good. Shark Attack. Like, I remember having that a few times at Coffee District for people bringing that in for bottle share Mondays. Like, such a fucking good beer. Those beers with just like how much hop character they could get into a really malty beer was always impressive to me. And a lot of the West Coast people did great with that. Stone had one I remember one of their anniversaries one year that was bonkers. I probably drank like a case of it that year that they brought it out.
Well, you're leaning into the hoppy version of that. I mean, Hophead Red from Green Flash, which I like too. My favorite in what this beer is, this Scarlet Carnivore, is a malty double red or Imperial Red, which has very little hop character. It's a big malt bomb, which I've always been. I'm a malt forward guy. Things have changed at Barrel of Monks, and I'm drinking a lot more hoppy beers now, which I'm happy about. because the beers are, interesting, and I'm learning a lot more about new hops and dialyzed yeast and things of that nature, which really bring me into the category. But at my heart, I'm a malt forward guy. I love big malty beers, and I think we talked about this recently on the show. I don't know why an Imperial Red and Imperial Browns, they're just as good, if not better, and more complex than Imperial Stouts to be, the scaffolding to build these crazy pastry beers, or just to be delicious on their own.
You did it. You did it so much when you were at Buddha. It's kind of funny.
Yeah, we built a lot of beers off those styles, and I just get so excited when we have that. We did an Imperial Red for our Grand Cru one year, and I just thought the beer was just so good. I was so happy with it. It's a style that I love so much.
That was it was like all Red X or something as the grain bill. You're talking with Barrel of Monks, right?
Yeah.
Wasn't it all like the malt bill was all Wireman Red X or something?
No, I don't think so.
Oh, I could have sworn that you had a Grand Cru that was like a red that you said it was all like it was 100% one particular malt.
If that was the case, that is lost in my brain and no longer is accessible to me.
We'll go with yes, that is true.
Let's just say yes. Let's just go with that, man. Listen, this is an easy breezy episode. Yes, anything you want to say, I'm for it. I agree with it. And we're just talking about great beer styles, right?
Yeah. What you mentioned about malt forward red. I said Shark Attack, the really hop forward double red. What's a malt forward double red that you really liked? Because I can't think of any off the top of my head.
Neither can I. I've made some, and this beer that I just have in my possession is definitely an Imperial Red Ale. But no, I'm having a hard time. When we worked together at the brewery, I made Olympus Mons,
I remember,
which was a double red that I was very proud of. We did Asylum Harbor, which was like a regular red ale, and there's a lot of great examples of those over the years. North Coasted Red Seal, which was a low ABV red, a malty red, and I can think of other examples of those, even though they're so far from my mind because there's so few breweries that actually do them. But when I do on occasion run into a local pub that's just doing the normal pub fare, and they still do have maybe a red and an IPA and a hefeweizen, I almost always like the red.
Oh yeah. Would you say that that's probably like a top 3 favorite style for you, if not maybe your first?
It's not my first, but it's something that it's so near and dear to my heart, in a beer style that I just love as far as just flavor profile, and then also probably because I can't get it very often. I think maybe that also makes me love it more. It's the how can I miss you if you won't go away situation. So red ales went away, so now I miss them even more. I'm actually looking up Imperial Red Ales as we're saying this, because definitely the American breweries went super hoppy with their reds.
Yeah.
Tokabaga from Cigar City is a malty red. Or I'm sorry, a hoppy red. Nugget Nectar, hoppy red. But I promise you that I've had malty red ales before, Mike. I just
multi
can't
double red ales.
Yes, I promised you it happened. If not, I created that in my head too. That's okay. I mean, I can live in my own fantasy world.
I feel like you do most of the podcasts, but so this started talking about hefeweizen and mentioning Funky Buddha. You showed me right before we went on here Funky Buddha releasing a Magic Eye PA with a can label that looks like one of those Magic Eye posters that you would see back in the day in like the mall, and there would be a schooner on it, but it's a fucking sailboat. Schooner is a sailboat, you I'm doing a Mallrats bit. But it's you brought this up because you're like, man, this is a departure from their branding of pretty much everything that they had been doing. It's labels on cans, not printed, and it's a art forward label as opposed to very brand specific, having the brand name be prominent, having the brewery name be prominent, something that you would see on grocery shelves, where the art forward stuff is something that you see from hype breweries more often than not. And
so just to be clear, Funky Buddha, and by the way, Barrel of Monks, Shelfie, right? This new thing, Hype Boy, right?
Yeah.
I just want to make sure you said on grocery store shelves, but I want to use the term Shelfie because it's the dumbest thing I've ever heard, and I want to make sure it's out there. So yes, I want to delineate those really clearly.
But I stopped myself from saying it when we were talking prior to the show because I'm like, this is stuff that we can talk about on the show. And that is, for their last anniversary, they did like a 3-can release, and the label art for those were very art heavy to me, and a big departure from what they were doing. And it's not something that I dislike, but it was just very different from what I was used to seeing with Funky Buddha. And I mean, if Ryan listens to this, he's probably rolling his eyes nonstop at us right now, or just calling us fucking assholes. But
pretending Ryan Sense listens to this podcast is pretty hilarious. But go ahead.
But it especially after listening to so much of Kodo Design, shout out to them, friends of the show, their 2024 beer trend review, and talking about like hierarchy in your brands and sub brands and stuff like that. It's such a weird thing to see from a brewery that was until recently part of Constellation, a huge multinational, and to see them going into that, which would be a more hyper localized kind of like appeal, is interesting, I guess, is the best thing. I would be interested to see how that is working out for them, or if it's grasping at straws. I don't know, but I credit them for trying something on that. You're still trying to find a double red ale that's malty.
Absolutely, you know me. So I really wanted your take on this because we sling a lot of arrows at the Hype Boy breweries and just the people that are into those beers because we don't think a lot of those are very good, and it's all about image.
Like to think that
quality.
I'm an indiscriminate arrow slinger. Like I just kind of close my eyes and let fly.
Well, okay, but I think who catches a lot of those arrows are what I just said, for good reason, and I love the idea that you can tell by the label. It's the most douchebaggy wine connoisseur from ever, 10 years ago, 5 years ago, whatever you want to say, 100 years ago, that looks at a label and sees a chateau on the label and it looks old, and now all of a sudden it's fancy and good. It's the same thing. It's like, oh, I can see a lot of the can on this label. On this, oh, this must be really good. Oh, there's like a lot of art, and like the name of the brewery is really small, so it must be boutique. It must be really good. It's the biggest bullshit line in the world. It's all marketing, right? It's all marketing. So the idea that you can take a beer and say, we'll put it in this boutique-y looking Hype Boy can, and all of a sudden people are going to like it more, it just chaps my ass, because the beer is the beer. The Paulaner Hefeweizen, which is about as good as a Hefeweizen you can get, has its own look and feel to it. I think it looks gorgeous. It looks old world. I understand marketing. I understand that everything's not going to be able to be, attractive to all people. So I get it. You're trying to exploit things and do your best to sell your brand. We certainly do the same thing. But when we get into these niches, I lose my mind at some points. So looking at Funky, who has been a grocery store brand, has been a massive brand. I mean, their seltzer had a Super Bowl ad a couple years ago, at least locally for us. To see them kind of going in that direction, it feels like it could be pandery. Like, remember when we were remember when we were your love? Remember when you couldn't get our beer and you traded it for a firstborn child from your best friend across the country? Remember that? It feels a little bit like that, but it also could just be like, hey, we're coming out with this new line and we want to introduce new things and keep the brewery fresh. I'm not saying I wouldn't have made the same decision, but I like that. I like your take on it.
Yeah, because there's two big types of at least visual branding to me right now. Old world vintage is still a very popular design aesthetic for beer. Especially there are people reviving old recipes. There are people buying now buying legacy breweries and bringing them into their fold, and they are trying to incorporate those into their portfolios. But there is a very flashy side of brewery visual branding that is working very well. Neon colors, heavy illustration, art, mascots. It's funny on the Kodo podcast they mentioned a very, very tongue-in-cheek goopy lettering, just fonts and lettering that looks liquidy and goopy. Like, and when they said that, I'm like, I know what they're talking about. Those are things trying to appeal to the younger demographic, that target audience that seems like the white whale to breweries right now, the ones who aren't drinking your beer, who you want to be drinking your beer. And how do you get them to drink your beer? By making stuff that looks like stuff that they currently drink.
Apparently using goopy lettering. I didn't know that was the thing. I'm going to have to talk to Ben because he's the one that does all of our labels these days. And I'm just going to say, Ben, I've got one word for you. Goopy. It's not plastics. This isn't The Graduate. It's goopy. We're going goopy here.
But, no, this is unsolicited fucking advice that doesn't fucking matter in the whole scheme of things. But one thing that I feel like Funky Buddha should try to do is lean heavily into one of their more popular brands, like something like Floridian, and make that like a brand of its own, like that Voodoo Ranger type of thing, like that hazy little thing and hazy little thing and create a sub brand around it. With
they do tropical Floridian.
Yeah, like
they already
doing
have
these offshoots of it, and they already got like that great color scheme going with so much of their stuff. Like I feel like they're already halfway there. But who knows? Like I said, unsolicited fucking advice. Who fucking cares what I say? This is just a couple people just shooting off their asses right now. But like Buddha has capabilities of doing stuff like that can appeal to the younger market, the lifestyle type of brands, and who knows, maybe we'll see something like that from them, and this is just kind of dipping their toes into some of those waters.
I mean, they're a giant when it comes to, I mean, they're a nationally recognized brand, an internationally recognized brand, and they obviously are one of the biggest in Florida. They've done so much, and they've succeeded beyond anything that my brewery could ever hope to achieve. But when I was making those beers back in the day, and I have no idea what the hell the base recipes are now. Things have changed. I mean, the last time I went into that brewery, I did not recognize it. I thought I was in a different place. So, but once upon a time, the blueberry cobbler, the pina colada, they were all based on Floridian. They were all the Floridian with stuff. So theoretically, you could do the blueberry cobbler Floridian. You can, now it's been its own brand, but you never know what rebranding that as the beer that people already know and enjoy might do for that. And then you get those bright color scheme changes from the Floridian to then you got blueberries all over the place. So there's a lot to be said for that. So I think that's an interesting point. The other thing I wanted to say before we move on to another topic is just Magic IPA, using a Magic Eye thing that for my generation was you could not escape Magic Eye puzzles when I was growing up. They were in the paper. Like you would open up areas of the newspaper and they were there. When you walk through a mall, I want to say conservatively 17 stores had Magic Eye posters for sale. So the fact that if no one else has done that, then like I said, Ryan says doesn't listen to this, but Ryan, you fucking genius. How the fuck did you come up with this first before someone else did it? And if many other people have done it just in smaller productions and smaller breweries, good for you for taking that, because that's really it's low hanging fruit that should have been picked long ago, and whoever came up with doing that is very bright.
So I am going to so I looked it up on the thing, the place.
Yeah.
Untapped, because that's where all of this stuff is important.
It is the history of beer knowledge.
There are a few places that have a Magic Eye IPA. There's one company called Moondog Craft Brewery, Australia. But the top brewery that has a Magic Eye IPA, brewery that you're pretty familiar with, Shorts.
Oh,
a brewery who I think is fair to say Funky Buddha was very much influenced by.
100% peanut butter and jelly ale, mixing the Soft Parade with, I can't remember what the peanut butter beer they did was. Yeah, they definitely were an inspiration. That's really funny. I haven't heard the name Shorts in a long time.
Last check-in was October 2022. So not terribly far away, but not also a long time ago.
Put it this way. If I saw that and I had that idea, I'd use it in a second.
And the can label is a Magic Eye type of thing. So we're going to
have a knockdown drag out fight between whoever owns Shorts and Ryan and Casey.
It's a bottle, not a can.
And we'll
here's a missed check-in. There's another brewery in Louisiana that has a Magic Eye in the can.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Those are always fun. I've been very frustrated. I'm not sure if I said this on the show before, or we talked about it or whatever, but we have a beer called Witty and Pink. We changed the name to Wizard and Pink last year. You know, we talked about brand synergy just now. Boom, crossover. We're talking about stuff. It's our Witty and Pink was our Wizard with raspberries, slightly modified recipe. So we decided to, move that over and do that going forward. But Witty and Pink was a beer for years, and another brewery had a beer called Witty and Pink. It was a sour ale, and we got all these check-ins on Untapped for Witty and Pink, and they were not good. They were bad check-ins. This is rancid. This is this. And I just was losing my mind. I have no recourse. This isn't our beer. It's not ours. So you're bringing down our scores, which are not good for us, and I can't do anything about it. Like, you're just checking in the wrong frickin' beer. It happens so often. It drives me insane.
I had that happen at our previous brewery where someone checked in on one of our beers a malt beverage that was made by Anheuser-Busch
Mm-hmm.
that wasn't even called. Okay, this is one of those times where I'll actually say names. We have a Category 5 IPA. They had a Hurricane fucking malt liquor thing that says Category 5 on it, and someone checked in that beer under our beer and 1-star rating and with a picture of it. And like I even replied on the official brewery account, "Hey, this isn't our beer. You checked it in under our beer. Could you please remove it?" No. That was the response. I kind of respected that because that was a very troll-like response. And
Good for you.
I've been known to troll myself. So I was like, okay, respect. But,
so I did the same thing. I said I responded, "Hey, this isn't our beer. Could you change this to be more appropriate?" There was never any response because most people don't look at any of these things. But it's just another frustrating aspect of a crowd-led platform where they can just say, "Yeah, I checked into this beer. It was crappy." How? That beer hasn't been made for 5 years. Who cares? You don't, or you can't, because you can't do anything about it.
So you talked about bringing that into the Wizard family, which I talked to some people about that who were like, "Why did they do this?" And I backed you guys up without having even had a conversation with you on it, because
Thanks, Mike.
I like the idea of brand families, and sub brands are now becoming a very popular thing. Something that I think a lot of breweries who are of around our size could probably benefit from creating sub brands of like your most popular beer and just going off of that and seeing how much you can get out of it, because like variety packs are hot right now, and that's why something like the Voodoo Ranger stuff does so fucking well. And here was another point on the pod. You're welcome on that burp, by the way. That I didn't even bother muting myself on. On the Kodo Design podcast was the blurring of styles, and how styles don't really mean a whole lot in actual style guidelines anymore. They are just used for placement in the market. And this is where something like these Voodoo Ranger Force beers come into play, which I know is very evident that you are not a fan of them. I am a fan of them. But I do understand your critique of them, is that how is this IPA? And in essence, it doesn't fucking matter anymore.
Okay, Christopher Walken.
It doesn't fucking matter. We both just did very bad Walken impressions.
Eugene Merman doing Walken, I believe.
But stuff like that, I'm going off on a branch off of a branch here, but yeah, like IPA sells. The name IPA, the style IPA sells, and there are people who don't really understand what that means, but they have a general idea. They go into a store, they see something that says IPA, they grab it, and it's fruit forward and very appealing to their general taste buds. And they're like, shit, I love IPA. And then other breweries are like, then we need to make IPAs that are like that to get those people, because IPA doesn't matter. It's kind of a bastardization of the styles, but it's working in sales.
Can we have a specialized United We Drink shirt that says United We Drink and then IPA doesn't matter? Somewhere on the show. It doesn't matter. It doesn't fucking matter. I'll never forget this, and I've said this in the show before, but I'll repeat it because I do that. is that one of my favorite things I ever experienced in doing a tasting was when a guy walks up to me at a Total Wine and More, and I've got this is early days of Barrel of Monk, so I have like 750s of triple and double and quad, and our Wizard White Ale. This is before a single in Havana was even available. No IPAs. He goes, "What kind of IPAs you got there?" I'm like, "No kind of IPAs." He's like, "I don't like all those IPAs." I said, "Okay, would you like to try this?" Nah. Wanders in the back, grabs like a 6-pack or a 12-pack. I think it was PBR, but it might as well be. It doesn't matter for the sake of the story. And he goes, "This is the only IPA I like." I was like, you have not used that term right once, and you've done it in like 3 different contexts and have not hit it on the head once. But that's the customer that we're trying to sell to. What kind of IPA you have? A stout? Yes. I have a stout IPA. Would you like to try it? That's the only correct answer to that question.
You know, you have told me that story before. You may have even said it on the show before. I don't remember.
Said it 5 times.
But for some reason, I always combine that story with the person at the tasting that you did that was like, "Oh, you make Monk in the Trunk?" "No, that's not me." "I love that beer. You guys do a good job." "That's not me." And then they went and bought it and held it up and was like, "Hey, I'm buying your beer. Still not my beer."
I have a lot of people at tastings. I used to do 3 tastings a week before my son was born. So I have a lot of those stories, and a lot of people would hold things up and yell at me for different reasons. So I can see how you would conflate those two.
That I believe that Total Wine tastings are one of the Rings of Dante's like Inferno thing. Like it is one of those levels of torture, I believe.
You know, I used to actually enjoy them to a certain degree because I did feel a sense of like competition. And I used to sell out of beer, and I always prided myself in the fact that our beer was good. And if I could get you to try it, I could get it to sell. And this sounds like tooting my own horn, but who cares? If you're listening to the show, you are subject to it. I don't know. But I would do tastings and they would say, "Oh yeah, I brought an extra case of your beer for the tasting." I'm like, "I'm going to sell like 5 cases. No one sells 5 cases. I sell 5 cases. I'd get them to bring in extra beer the next day and I'd sell 5 cases of it. And I used to keep track of it. And so I actually like the tastings. I don't want to do them now. I'm way too jaded and old for that. But for a period of time, I actually kind of enjoyed like the competition, the hunt, whatever you want to call it. That's a very douchey thing to say, by the way. I know that. Just forget everything I just said.
But ultimately, I do want to pull this back to what the initial point of this was.
Did you have a point?
Yeah. Sub-brands and brand families. And like, I kind of dig that you guys went into that with the Witty Wizard, or I'm sorry, what it was?
That's what it is now. I've just changed it. Wizard in Pink.
Wizard in Pink. Witty Wizard sounds better, but that's
Screw you, Mike.
A fucking unsolicited fucking advice that you can just tell me to go fuck myself.
I did.
But like I think that there's something to that. Like take your styles that work well for you, your brands that work well for you, and develop off of that. Because that can, especially if you have a really good footing in your local area, that can build a better following in your local area by just having that one brand name focused on people who are fans of that. And that can start spreading out and start spreading out and start spreading out. Like, some of this stuff does need a little bit of hype around it, I will admit. But I think that a brewery who makes like 2,000 barrels a year, like something around us, I think that something like that can work for both of us. And like, these types of brands have been shown to work very well in the market right now. Like I said, Voodoo Ranger, the Little Thing line from Sierra Nevada is one of those types of lines. 805 from Firestone Walker is huge out in the West Coast, as a sub brand. Like I think stuff like that is part of the future of craft brewing, and those who don't adapt to things like that as a distributing brewery are going to be behind the curve. Like, it's not the only thing that has to be done for brewers, but like, if you have ambitions to be a grocery store, C-store type of distributing brewery regionally, stuff like that I think should be very important to you.
It's funny that you spent some time talking about this, and I love the fact that it's kind of spun off of a random conversation. But I was having this conversation 10 years ago with my partners, talking about like Torpedo and Tropical Torpedo and different things that Sierra Nevada was doing and different things that Ballast Point was doing. And there was so
retaining that brand name is important.
Sculpin, right?
Yeah.
Sculpin had all the variations on Sculpin. And we all know that, things are cyclical. You can't stay on top
some
forever.
Work, some don't. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's not like every single one of those examples has worked out. I mean, I don't think Tropical Torpedo exists anymore, but they do have like the extra torpedo. They have, different variations of that have still existed. And I said, we need to do that. We need to find a line or two to do other beers off the top of. And we did other versions of Wizard over time, but they never were packaged. They were never available out in the market. They were just on draft in the tap room, which is a very different animal. You can't really gauge things from that. So I'm glad that we're still talking about that, because this is 10 years ago we were having this conversation. I thought that's where we were going, and it's a little bit validating that you agree with that 10 years later.
We at previous brewery, Cat 5, going back to that one again, we had oaked Cat 5, we had grapefruit Cat 5, we had these extensions of that brand and had that brand family, instead of renaming it into something and creating, like, I get that appeal of wanting to create a new beer with a new identity, because new is sexy and fun to a lot of people. But if it is a brand that already has a decent sales history and following, like, it can be just as enticing to people to see a new member of that family come out, and be like, for people who are fans of Wizard, to be like, oh, here's a new type of Wizard. I love Wizard Wit. And like, I think that it's stuff like that that builds real connection to a brand, because and I'm sure someone's probably telling me to go fuck off as a 2,000 barrel brewery. It'd be like, people don't really have a connection. People have connections to our breweries, whether you want to admit it or not, and who feel passionately about the brands that we have. And I'm sure you have like people who are super into Wizard and love it a lot. And for them to see an extension of that to the Wizard name, like, probably pumps them up a little bit when they see it and they go and buy it. And like, I think giving people a reason to feel a part of your company and included in it in that way, as being big fans of it, of a brand and a family of brands, I think that's fucking incredible. And I think that's what a lot of companies are going for.
100%. Yeah, I'm definitely with you on this. I do want to mention that I am now drinking the Scarlet Carnivore, which we have definitively understood is the first Imperial malty red ale I have ever had.
Okay, it is. You never found one that wasn't
Nope.
hop forward. Okay.
No, it's either I've made them, which I've done several, or they have not existed before, as far as what I have conceived or understood. So it's the first one ever, and I'm enjoying it really thoroughly. So I made a scientific prediction that I would enjoy this, and I am, and I'm happy to share that with you all.
Okay, so I'm pulling up Beer Advocate's Imperial Red Ale right now.
I've already done it.
I know that you probably did.
And
but I want to look at it.
They're all hoppy.
Nugget Nectar, I wouldn't have thought of them as an Imperial Red Ale.
No, me neither.
Because I feel like they marketed themselves as amber ale
Well,
at
and they
one
also
point.
have double nugget nectar as number
Yeah.
2. So if
Oh, I don't see that here.
well, I have
I
this
have
is
Good
the beer
Night.
advocate.
This isn't by. Is this by? This is the amount of ratings, not by average. So
I've got it
Good
by
Night is
styles.
on there, which is hoppy. Hophead Red, hoppy. Lucky 13 from Lagunitas, hoppy. Nosferatu, I have never had. From Great Lakes, so I don't know that one. Hog Heaven from Avery, which I thought was a barley wine.
Quite possibly. Mike, are you reading this to embarrass me? Is that the
No,
point
I
of
actually
this?
want to find.
No, by the way,
I
it's
want to
fine.
find one.
I'm really fine being embarrassed. Uh, I know I've had
Well,
Imperial Reds.
here's the bad elf stuff. The insanely bad elf, very bad elf. Like those are malty. Those are certainly
Yeah,
not.
and they're not good.
I know they're not your thing.
They're not good.
But like, oh, here's double nugget nectar. But yeah, like there's a lot of stuff that I've never even heard of on here. So
this is the narrative I want to go with, and I'm sure we're going to go into last calls here soon. This is the narrative that I'm in my mind. I'm going with. I had one Imperial Multi Red. Let's just call it from a brew pub in the middle of nowhere that does 200 barrels a year, and I said, "Wow, this is amazing. I want to do this. This is my favorite beer style of all time." And then I made one at every brewery I ever worked at. And I then drank that beer and said, well, this is what these beers are supposed to taste like. And then I concocted the idea that these beers were rampant and popular in the world. That's what I'm going with.
Perfect. I love it. Because we did make a quasi list of grab bag stuff. Did we miss anything on your list that you?
Oh, yeah. We did not talk about my hectic day that I'm going to do tomorrow with Waypoint, and we did not talk about Cigar City at all.
I feel like we should talk about Cigar City.
Dude, I'm with you. Let's talk about it.
All right. So we mentioned on the show some time ago that when Wayne Wambles, the former head brewer of Cigar City, was let go. And we didn't get too into it, but it was kind of just talking about like how much he did for brewing in Florida and brewing in general. So since then, it is like come out that apparently all of the staff, brewing staff at Cigar City has been let go. The brewery does not function in Tampa anymore. Or at least the production brewery in Tampa does not function anymore. All Cigar City beers are now being made in North Carolina, in Colorado, or wherever. Phil's going to send me a text like correcting me on so much shit. But
hi, Phil.
Whatever. Hi, Phil. But the tap room and restaurant on Spruce Street is still open. The brew pub at the Tampa airport is still open, and the location at the Amalie, I'm sorry if I'm mispronounced that, the hockey arena for the Lightning is still open. But this is it's sad. I think as someone who is still like, I know that sometimes I come across as this fucking like curmudgeon in the fucking brewing industry, but Cigar City has so many feels in my heartstrings of brewing industry down here, because I used to travel across the state with Phil, with you, with many people for just day trips to go to Cigar City and grab beers and come back. They took the brewing world in Florida to the next level and continue to up their game throughout the years, even post Canarchy buying, like they kept up with shit, and it's fucking sad to hear that place that was so near and dear to so many people's heart is not functioning, and that people lost their jobs, first of all. But fuck, it sucks. Like I said earlier in the show that I bought a Highlight double IPA. They're one of their new brand extensions on the Highlight family. And it was a little bittersweet because I was like, I want to try this beer. It's new, but I'm upset that there are people who lost their jobs. So like you can call me a fucking whatever for that, but like I feel for those people. I feel for the brewery, and I feel for people like Joey who like created that brewery with Wayne, and like to see it be very much different from what you created, and you created a community, and you can say hype, but like holy fuck, they put out some amazing beers. The barrel age offerings that came out of them, like that weren't even adjunct riddled, like Imperial Milk Stout, the Church on a Hill, many
Niels
Boreum, yeah, like holy fuck, they did amazing stuff for the brewing world, not just Florida, and I think it's sad.
We've been in this industry long enough now to have nostalgia for our own experiences, and we experienced being fans of Cigar City, of being they were like the house on, yeah, well, but they were the house on the hill that we really wanted to own and be a part of. And also because of how awesome people like Joey and Wayne were, they got to be colleagues and people that would actually talk to us about things and do collaboration beers. I have experience doing those with former breweries, not with Barrel of Monks necessarily. And because I've been around in this industry long enough to experience that nostalgia, it's always sad when there's a changing of the guard, when a brewery changes over to being something completely different. And we have to expect it. When it went over from Cigar City to Canarchy, who knows how long it's going to be until it's bought by another corporate entity. And we saw that. Many people are still employed, including our friend Phil.
Yeah.
Right. So we're happy for that. And we're happy for how that brand evolves. And now it's going to be in, it continues to be in more places and it has a wider reach. But we can mourn the loss of the Tampa facility and the brewery there, because that was the place that we went. That was the place that we didn't discover, but learned to love local beer. I would say that's the best thing for me.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah.
Yeah. I learned to love craft beer before Cigar City existed. I learned that Florida could make good beer because of Cigar City. And, oh, wow, we can do this. This is not foreign. This is not crazy. And we all looked at them for inspiration. And there was always the thing like, what's your Hunapu, bro? You're going to open a brewery. Yeah. What's your Hunapu? Right? We've talked about that here. And by the way, the answer is you don't have one, because the beer industry has changed and it's not like it was when Hunapu was invented. But
they did Hunapu Day again, like as a beer release a couple weeks ago.
Yeah.
They sold out of it. And variants. Like I don't know what like lines or anything like that, and it doesn't fucking matter. But the fact that they made the beer again, they released it again. They didn't have the festival and all of that went around with it that built up some of that brand, but they sold out of it very early, and good for them on that.
Listen, the only thing that stays the same is change. Breweries are going to change. They're going to change hands. They're going to go on to different things. They're going to have different goals and aspirations. When Funky was bought, there was different aspirations for the brand. It's now back home with the local crew, and they're changing some of the things they're trying to do. It's all about adaptation. And if they're making good beer, I'm still along for the ride, right? Highlight's a great beer. I'm still along for the ride. I haven't tried the beer that you talked about, the imperial version of it.
Double IPA,
yeah. But I'm going to do it. I'm going to try that beer the next time I see it. And I'm still along because I think it's important to reward people that make good beer regardless of the situation. And that's kind of my stance always, is like, what's the quality? It's a little bit disheartening to see people lose their jobs. I agree with that. To have a Tampa institution not be operating the way it was, that's a loss. It's a big loss for the whole community there. It's a big loss for the Florida beer community. But as I've always said, what happens when somebody kind of graduates to the next level and does something different, someone else can fill that void. And you hope that someone steps up, and there's a billion breweries in Tampa and a billion big breweries in Tampa. But who's going to step up and fill that void of being the local guys that focus on that area and aren't worried about selling beer in Wyoming?
Very true. You know what? I know that there's the one thing is very personal to you. The other topic.
Who cares? We put together a whole grab bag. We got a whole show out of this, Mike.
Yeah.
As you mentioned at the top of the show, we pulled this entire show out of our asses, and we've gone for way long enough and didn't even go through all the topics. That means that we're professionals.
Pros. Let's get into last calls. The point in the show where we give each other an unspecific amount of time to talk about whatever it is that we want. Beer related, not beer related. The only rules are that it is uninterrupted, unopposed, unobjected. I'm going to start things off here with something that's going to sound fucking weird, but I'm going to tell you how to make the best scrambled eggs ever. First, crack 2 eggs into a bowl. Use a flat surface. It works the best. Helps keep pieces of the shell out of your eggs. Then, this is very key. Add a tablespoon of sour cream into your bowl. Whisk. And when I say whisk, I mean mix. I like to use a fork myself. Some people, they can use a whisk if you want to, but I'm a fork guy myself. Do this until the sour cream starts incorporating and the color of your mixture looks very consistent. Don't overwork because you don't want to knock too much air out of your egg mixture. Season with salt and pepper. Meanwhile, heat some butter in a nonstick pan. I prefer my made-in nonstick pan, wink, wink, over a medium-low heat. Let the butter fully melt and start to bubble. Once you start seeing that bubbling, you know that you're good to go. Add your egg mixture to the pan. Use a rubber spatula, silicone spatula, something like that, because you never want to use metal in your nonstick pan. Keep that in mind. And keep your eggs moving. Do not let them sit for too long. You're going to start to form some nice curds of scrambled egg. Start forming them into the middle of your pan. Just keep them moving. Don't let them sit there for too long. That's the most important part. Keep stuff moving. Pile those cooked curds on top of one another. Some people use a figure 8 motion. Some others use circles. I like to just push from the outside into the middle and then just go back out to the sides. You do you. But don't let them sit. Keep doing this until the curds are fully formed and there's no liquid itself remaining. You want the eggs to be moist, but not runny. You also don't want them to be bone dry. Remove the pan from the stove, plate them, garnish with some chopped chives or some black pepper, whichever you like, and enjoy the best fucking scrambled eggs you will ever have in your life. Kevin?
Well, this is embarrassing because I was going to do my last call on making the best sunny side eggs of all time, but now I have to pivot, which is difficult for me. No, my dad actually chimed in, and by chimed in, he texted me a few weeks ago saying that all you guys from United We Drink should talk about your favorite memories from the ballparks, the baseball ballparks that you grew up in as kids. And in honor of the fact that the baseball season is underway, but when this episode comes out, we're about to get into opening day in Detroit, because Detroit has been on the road for the start of the season. They're 4-0 as of the time that we're recording this podcast, which I'm very happy about. Mets, they had 2 games that were rained out as of this recording, but we're going to play a double header tomorrow. Then they're going to go into Detroit for opening day. But he said, what are your favorite memories of going to Detroit Tigers baseball games when you were a kid? Now, when I grew up, and the stadium is not there anymore, Tiger Stadium on the corner of Michigan and Trumbull was alive. That was my stadium. That's where I grew up. And if you don't know about this, when you think of Fenway, you think of Old Yankee Stadium, you think of Wrigley. Tiger Stadium was one of the oldest ballparks in Major League Baseball when it was demolished. And it's a very sad thing that Tiger Stadium does not exist anymore. It's very sad for me that Jad will never see a game at Tiger Stadium. And thinking about my favorite memories of Tiger Stadium, these are them. These are the things that just echo in my mind. There was a game that my dad and I went to at Tiger Stadium where I believe we moved down from our not so great seats. After the Tigers were down late in the game, all the people kind of dispersed, right? There's people are leaving, fair weather fans, what have you. And we moved down behind the home plate, which I'd never sat before in a game. And in the 9th inning, Lou Whitaker hit a walk-off home run. Lou Whitaker should be in the Hall of Fame, by the way. Lou Whitaker, second baseman of the Tigers, hit a walk-off home run. That was just mind-blowing to me. And I remember seeing it from somewhere behind home plate that we had moved down to, which was like a cool thing that I don't know if you can still do that, but back in the day in the stadiums, they'd let you do that, which was wonderful. I had a chance to go on the field at Tiger Stadium. We won a contest, and I got to go on the field and catch pop-ups to win Little Caesars pizza prizes, a autographed ball, a pizza party for my friends, and a Little Caesars pizza. I caught all 3, by the way, because I was a badass. But I got to go in center field at Tiger Stadium, 440 to dead away center field, flagpole in play. I got to be out there. Game was against the Baltimore Orioles before the game, and catch pop-ups on Tiger Stadium's field. One of the greatest moments of my life, and I can barely remember some of it because I was very, very young. I caught a ball. I got a ball. I didn't catch it. I got a ball that was hit a home run into right field by Skeeter Barnes. I was crushed between 2 adults. Crushed me into a seat and the railing because they were trying to get the ball and I was trying to get the ball. I was probably 9, and I ended up getting the ball because they felt so bad for me because they had basically killed a child. My father thought I was dead, and that was a bad time, but a good time because I got the home run ball from Skeeter Barnes. There was a time that we were sitting out in left field where my dad, or I forgot my glasses because I've had glasses since I was very young, and my dad convinced me to take his glasses so I could see the game, and convinced me that he could see everything when he couldn't. He couldn't see anything. He's blind as a bat. But I kept asking him who the players were because I could read the names on the back of their jerseys and assume my dad would have no idea that Gary Ward was the left fielder. But of course, he was an adult and followed the Tigers and knew all the position players, so he could tell me, oh, that's Gary Ward in left field, and that's Tony Phillips in center. So my dad took the bullet for me and allowed me to just enjoy the game while he sat there blind as a bat, not able to see a goddamn thing. My dad took me down to see Alan Trammell's retirement game. My favorite player growing up was Alan Trammell, shortstop for the Tigers. And there was word that he was going to retire. My dad got excited and said, we have to go to this last game of the year. There's rumors that Trammell's going to retire. So it was like a kind of like a hectic thing. Like you have to get home. We have to get down to Tiger Stadium. And I got to see my favorite ball player retire and say this was his last game, which was amazing. And then later on in my life, we went to Comerica Park and saw his number retired by the Tigers. And my son was at that game as an infant. He'll never remember it, but we were all there, myself, my dad, and my son. those were all amazing times. But my favorite memory of Tiger Stadium was the last game at Tiger Stadium against the Kansas City Royals, where I was in the right field upper deck, I believe, when we saw the Tigers win the game on a home run. I believe it was actually in the 8th inning. I always think it was in a walk-off, but it wasn't. And it was the last game at Tiger Stadium. And all the Tigers greats came out of right field and just ran onto the field. And, flash bulbs going everywhere, chills up and down my spine, 100 years almost at the corner of Michigan and Trumbull. And we were there. And my dad got us season tickets so that I can go to the opening day game and the final game at Tiger Stadium. How can anyone express, as a Tigers fan, as a sports fan, how much that can mean to them to be there? I recently watched this on YouTube. I watched the whole game, and watched the ceremonies at the end, and I got a chill. So we love our baseball teams. We love our sports teams, whether that's your thing or not. And there's something deep inside my soul about being a Tigers fan, about being in that place. It's something that makes me sad that my son won't experience it, but he's going to experience his own thing with his own teams, with his own ballparks. And that's beautiful too. So that's it.
Awesome. Well, that was really fun to hear you talk about. Like,
thanks, Mike.
No, and it got me thinking about stuff at the vet, seeing Phillies games. And I don't have vivid memories of anything in particular, like anything extraordinary. Like I just always remember loving to have like nachos at the vet, like just that, that plastic tray of chips with a little corral of melted cheese whiz in it, and watching the game of the barkers yelling "beer guy here," like stuff like that. That is ingrained in my memory. One specific memory I do have was, and I wasn't at the game when it happened, but I was at the game because we left early because the Phillies were losing, and I believe it was to the Giants at the time. We left the game early, and Mickey Morandini, a second baseman for the Phillies back in the day, I believe he still works in the Phillies system now. I think, not looking it up, but he hit a grand slam. A guy who was a soft hitting defensive second baseman hit a grand slam in the game shortly after we left, and I was so mad at my dad at the time because we were listening to the radio broadcast as we were driving back from South Philly into Bucks County, where we lived on I-95, and I'm like, we should have been there. We were there, and we didn't get to see him hit a grand slam. It's just a funny thing. Of course, being like a fucking young kid mad at their parents is such a cliche thing. But I mean, like, yeah, I don't have such vivid, like, awesome, like, memories that are important memories, like of Trammell's last game, his then number being retired at Comerica. Like, it's just the experience of the vet. I've only ever been to 2 games at the bank where they play currently, and both of those were very, like, I don't really remember much of the first, other than that they won very big, and that was in 2008 when they won the World Series that year. I just happened to be up there for a funeral, and someone in my family had tickets to the game, and we're like, "Do you want to go?" So we went, and they won big. And then when I lived there in 2018, 2019, we went to a game, and for one of the worst seats that we could have ever started off with, like our seats were 3 rows from the top, but we were near a suite or like some sort of indoor thing that had like a bar that we were allowed to go into and could get beers, and just worked our way down until we were in the outfield in Ashburn Alley, where a lot of the restaurants are. That's where the standing room is. And I'm like, fuck, like this is a great spot to watch a game. Like just in the outfield, can get a beer over there. And I was like, this is what baseball fields are supposed to be, is to have people just standing in the outfield, watching the game, yelling at the opposing team's bullpen below you, and just having a good old time. But yeah, like baseball stadiums, I don't have specific memories, but it's just like a general good vibe being in them.
You've got a lot of specific memories, and you're lucky for having those because you love baseball. And you don't have to love baseball. You don't have to love sports. You can think it's all silly. I think most sports are silly in general. Even my favorite sport, it's ridiculous that I care so much about the Tigers, but I do. I just do. It's important to me. It's part of my life. It's part of my history. And going to Tiger Stadium, if I had my choice, I love Comerica Park. It's a nice park. I've only been there a few times, but I like the modern ballparks. If I had my choice, showing my age, I'd take the dirty, dingy old Tiger Stadium with the smells and the history and the fact that Ty Cobb played on that field when it was either Bennett Park or Navin Field or whatever it was before it became Tiger Stadium. I'd take that. I prefer it. I love those aspects of those.
Oh, don't get me wrong. There are some of those fields that are like the fact that Fenway and Wrigley still exist. And I've been in Wrigley, and it's like almost like a religious experience for a person who isn't religious. And I've been outside of Fenway. I've never been inside, but I've like walked around the stadium, like ballparks like that, and looking at like pictures of the Polo Grounds and Ebbets Field and
Old Yankee Stadium.
Yeah, like those. There are fantastic values about that, but give me a modern day ballpark. I like the Vet was a piece of fucking shit, and I don't care.
Well, the Vet was a cookie cutter stadium, was it not?
Yes, it absolutely was.
Okay,
Three Rivers Stadium was practically the same fucking thing.
Yeah, so I mean, those were the concrete masses that happened in a certain period in time. Listen, much respect, man. I love modern day ballparks. I'm just saying, I'm showing my age. I would kill to go to one more game at Tiger Stadium. One more game at Tiger Stadium just to experience that place. And, you know, we all have our version of nostalgia. We talk about it with the beer industry all the time. And
oh God, that was our fucking wrestling podcast. Basically was nostalgia.
We're allowed to have that. And we talked about baseball for a long time, which I love. So go Tigers, go Phillies.
Go Phils.
And we should probably bring this one home.
All right. Kevin, you want to plug anything?
I talked a little bit about the Polliner Hefeweizen, so go to Barrel Monk's Brewing's YouTube channel and check out our Old Favorite Friday videos. We really appreciate any watches that we get from that. We love highlighting incredible classic beers that people don't give enough respect to. And I know that our listenership loves classic beers. There's a reason why you're listening to us. So please go over there, give us a watch, see us talking about the beers that we all enjoy so very much.
I want to just plug a few events that we have coming up at Copperpoint. When this comes out, the following Saturday, we are doing a pop-up at the Point, which is one of our pop-up markets that we do with local artists, makers, local businesses. It's going to be our season finale. We're going to stop doing them during the summer because it's not fun to be in our brewery that is not temperature controlled during the summer. So come out and support some local businesses on the 13th. We are also having a little party on 420. Smoke them if you got them. And then our 9th anniversary is coming up on May the 11th there in Boynton Beach. 9 years of beers in Boynton Beach. We'll have a bunch of fun stuff going on there. So if you are local and you want to come support what I do for a living, that's that. Other than that, if you want to follow the show on our social media, we are at United We Drink on Twitter and Blue Sky. We are at United We Drink Pod on Instagram and Threads. We are on all of your major podcast streaming services. If you want to support the show financially, we have our Brands We Love page on our website, unitedwedrink.com, Made in Cookware, which I alluded to earlier, Trade Coffee, Liquid Death Water, tons of awesome stuff that we ourselves support and love right there on the page. If you use those links and go and make a purchase on them, we get a little kickback on that. We also have our store, unitedwedrink.com/store. You can get shirts, buttons, stickers, totes, and other fun stuff over there. Other than that, we will be back here in a couple of weeks with another new episode. Thank you, everyone, once again, and cheers.
Cheers. Cheers to malty double red ales.